Hey everyone, Zach here, and welcome to the 50-second lesson of this RTS tutorial series. In this video, we will do the prep work for our special RTS units. These units will include our infantry unit, our harvester, our support unit, and our engineer. There's a lot of little bits we have to do to get this in order. So that said, fire up your editor, and let's get started. Alright, so welcome back to the editor. And as I stated in the start of this, we have a lot of setup to do for our special units. And remember, our special units are the infantry unit, the engineer, the harvester, which we already have on the map here, and a blueprint for, and the support unit. We'll be starting with the engineer, but first we have to do that setup, and we have a lot of little things to do. And I'm going to show you why we're doing this setup first before we do anything else, because it's going to look like it doesn't relate. So the first thing we're going to do to see this problem is we're going to create the parts that we need for the rest of this to work correctly. Now, you could do this in a different order, but you're going to run into some issues, and that's what we're going to see. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up everything I need for this lesson, which is going to be the RTS unit master, the harvester unit, and I'm also going to open up some things that will look like they don't matter, but they do. And that's going to be the ground vehicle, the building master. So go into our buildings blueprint, building master, and finally, the widget for our building. Now, before we do anything else, I'm going to create a new widget, and this widget is what we're going to be adding to all of this. So go to your widget folder, right-click, user interface, widget blueprint. And this is going to be w_display status. And let's pop this open and let's create our display information. Just pin this in there. And all we're going to put in here are 2 progress bars. So the first progress bar is going to be the centermost on the screen. So I'm just going to grab my progress bar from my commons, drag it into my canvas panel, select it, and I'm going to rename this as my health prog bar. I'm going to anchor this to the center of the screen, and I'm going to put my X position at 0, my Y position at 0. I'm also going to change the alignment on the X-axis to 0.5 so it's centered. And next I'm going to change my Y size to 12 just so it's a little bit smaller and thinner. You don't have to do that if you don't want. Now I'm going to duplicate this bar. So copy and paste it into the canvas panel. And I'm going to name this one my armor prog bar. Again, I'm going to set the X position to 0. And it puts it over top the other one. We don't want that. So I'm going to change the Y position to 24. If we zoom in, we can see the 2 bars have a bit of space between them. The next thing I'm going to do on the armor prog bar is I'm going to change the color. So the top bar is going to remain blue when it's filled, and the bottom bar is going to be green. So I'm going to just change this to 0, 1, 0. There we go. I'm going to compile and save, and we are done with this. We've set up our progress bars. We just need to display them now. So I'm going to go into my unit master. And in my unit master, I'm going to close out my on training complete, my set unit features, and my target building there. I'm going to create a few new variables, and I'm also going to create a few new functions. So I'm going to create 4 variables, and they're all going to be floats. So I'm just going to do the first one as current health. I'm going to set this to float, and I'm going to compile real quick just so I can get the default. Actually, I should have done that a little bit later. I'm going to create the next one, which will be my max health, and then it'll be current armor, and you guessed it, max armor. Alright, now I'm going to compile so I get the defaults. I'm going to set my current health to 75. I'm going to set my max health to 100. And I'm going to do the same for my current armor. It's going to be 25. Oh, actually, yeah, it's going to be 25. So the bars will be slightly different. And the max will be 100. Alright, now before I go any further, let's just quickly put these in a category. They're going to be in stats, and I'll move the other ones into stats as well. I'm just dragging and putting it over the word stats so it moves it into the folder. Now, compile that again, go to your viewport, and let's add in the progress bar itself to our unit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, first I'm going to make sure I have the capsule component highlighted, and I'm going to click on the add component, and I'm going to type in widget. And I'm going to take the first one here, this widget component, and it'll be unit status bar. And on the right hand side we have this widget class. Well, I'm going to add that class we just created, that W display status. There we go. See the bar is now in the middle of the character. Of course, we don't want it there. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the bar and I'm going to move it up. You can see it's recompiling and giving me a random gender each time. And I'm going to move it to 125 is where I actually like it. So I'm just going to move it to 125 there. Now, again, compiling, so we have this added to our components list properly. I'm going to go back into my event graph, and I'm going to create a couple of new functions. In fact, I'm going to create 2 new functions to start. We're going to have 3 at the end of this. But whilst I am thinking about it, we are going to just categorize this on training complete also as spawning, just so we don't have it sitting out there. So let's create that first variable. The first function, which will be update unit health bar. There we go. So what we need to do is we need to tell the status bar what we want to do with it. So we're going to grab the status bar, drag it in here, and we are going to drag off of this, and we're going to do get user widget object. So we're going to cast to the widget. We can't cast just using this. We need an actual object, and that's what this is. This is the type of object we're casting to. So we're going to do cast to W display status. I'm going to convert this by right-clicking to a pure cast. And now I'm going to pull from this, and I'm going to ask for my health prog bar. I want to get it. What I want to do with this now is set the percentage of the bar. So I'm going to grab off of here and type in set percent. I'm going to plug that into there. There we go. And I'm going to put a return node in. Brilliant. Now, what we're going to do to get the percentage to actually show up is do a bit of math. Really simple math. Grab your current health, get it. Grab your max health, get it. And we're going to do float divided by float. Plug those two into each other. Plug that into the in percent. And then we're going to do the same for our armor. So what we're going to do that is just literally highlight everything in here except for the starting node and the return node. Control C for copy. Let's do the smart, not hard. And then we're going to create a new function, which will be update unit armor bar. And I'm going to paste all this into there. And I'm just going to connect those pins. Actually, I'm going to repaste it in so I can move it more easily. There we go. It's actually already lined up nicely. You don't need to worry about that. You can move up all the nodes if you want on your own. I just like doing it in one giant chunk. I'm going to delete my current health and my max health. I'm going to delete the health prog bar, and I'm going to search for my armor prog bar and plug that into my target. And then current armor and max armor. Now, there are 2 things to note. I'm going to show you an error, and I'm going to show you something I'm intentionally leaving out currently. So if we go here, we can already see one of the errors real quick. Of course, this isn't updating because it doesn't have any information. It's not runtime. If we go back here, the bar vanishes. It only exists from one side. So we should be able to see it in the map, right? If you haven't learned yet, when I say things like that, it means no, we can't see it. Even though we have a unit here. Let's hit play and see what happens. We go in. We're behind the unit, so we shouldn't be able to see it. Let's go to the front. Oh, it actually showed up. I'm going to go over if it doesn't show up. But notice that there's nothing in there. Let's spawn in a unit, and there's still nothing in there. Okay. So this is a slightly different error than the one I was expecting to show you. I'll go over what to do if your harvester unit, this is a harvester unit, right? Yes, it is. What to do if it doesn't show up in your harvester unit. And that was part of the reason why you're doing this first, just to be on the safe side. So let's go into here for a oh, yeah, the reason why I didn't show up, why nothing is showing up inside of our bar, is we skipped 2 steps. I'm only skipped 1. Sorry about that. So we haven't told it to actually display anything in that bar yet. So right here we have set unit birthday. What we're going to do is we're going to add the update health bar, and then we're going to add the update unit armor bar. I'm just going to move everything else down slightly. Hit compile, hit play. All right, now let's go in here, and we can see that there's information in the bar. There we go. It works well. Now, so we're going to add in that third function I talked about, and then we should actually see that error regardless. So you'll understand what to do when that happens. If you're already having that error, don't worry. I'm going to show you the fix in a minute. It's just easier to show you the next step first. So the next thing is, because that bar is only showing up from one side, only showing up from the front, it's really kind of annoying. We can't see it at other angles. So we are going to orientate that bar towards the camera. To do so, we're going to create a third function, which will be orient to camera. And all we're going to do in here is we're going to get our player controller reference. So controller ref, get it. We are going to get our camera reference. So the camera pawn reference. Now our camera has a sphere that it rotates around. This sphere is what we need to orientate towards in reality, because that's what's rotating. So we're going to get our sphere by typing in sphere and scrolling all the way to the bottom. Get sphere. And then we want to get its relative rotation. And we don't want to, yeah, we want to get it, sorry. And we're going to right click at this last pin here, and we're going to split it. We don't care about the X or the Y, we care about the Z. So we're going to just set the X and Y to the default on the new rotator we're going to make. So drag off the X, make rotator. Give yourself a little bit of space, plug the Y into the Y, and on the Z, we're going to do plus float. And we want to orientate 180 degrees towards the camera. So if it's currently facing away from the camera at start, think about it, we're rotating it around. So we want it backwards. Now, if you want to skip this step and just plug the Z into the Z, you can, in the viewport, rotate the status bar 180 degrees, in which case then you just use the relative rotation. I don't like doing it that way. I run into some issues, but I don't think everyone's going to run into those sort of issues. Next, grab the unit status bar, bring it into your event graph, and you want to set world rotation. The rotation is going to be this return value. And we're going to put a return node here. And of course, we're going to plug this in. And I'm just going to raise that up. Compile, save, go to your event graph, and then on your event tick, which notice we don't have one in here, we have to add that in. So event tick, add that in. We are going to orientate towards the camera. Now hit play, and you notice now we have that issue I was talking about where it's not updating the harvester. The status bar is still there. Spawn in another unit, and notice that one's orientating towards the camera. So this is the reason, the primary reason we have to do these setups first. And that's simply because, oh yeah, it does not work when you go above the unit on a top-down point of view. If you want to change that, you have to set the X rotator to also match the orientation of the camera. So what we're going to do to fix this is the same thing you're going to do if the status bar itself isn't showing up. You need to call the function in the harvester unit. Now, the reason that is because the harvester unit as a child was created before these functions were made in the parent. So instead of having to go back and update the other 3 special units we're going to create, we're getting this set up now so that it's ready to go when we create the other units. We could delete the harvester unit and rebuild it. That will take time, and you can do that if you want. Instead, I'm going to be a little bit lazy, and I'm just going to call the function at the end of this event here. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to do orientate to camera. Ooh, I don't want the event. I want the function. Sorry. Call function. Plug that into there. And then it should work. We hit play. There it is. So if the status bar isn't showing for whatever reason, what you're going to do at the end of the parent begin play, which should actually call that event up, is you are going to add in you're going to right click and do update armor and update health on the event begin play up here. So that is the primary reason. The other reasons we're doing that is the engineer unit is going to affect the car, and it's going to affect the buildings, which is why we have those open as well. Now, I also know there's another step we're going to need to go through that's going to affect the harvester and all the children of the unit master. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to break this for a second, and we are going to create a delta time variable in here. So just drag off of there, promote to variable. This will be delta time. And then we're going to plug into here. And now we have a little bit of an issue. We already have a delta time in one of the children. So it's not going to mess anything up. The game has already updated itself to know how to fix this, but we now have 2 delta time variables. So if we go to our unit harvester, you're going to see delta time 0. We don't want this. So we're going to do delta time. We want to set delta time. Notice we had a delta time 0 in there. And I'm just going to replace this current node with the new one. Drag that up, plug that into there, plug that into there, and there we go. We actually don't even need this in here. We can skip this step because we're getting the delta time from the parent, but because we created this child earlier on, I'm just a wee bit paranoid. But we still have 2 references to this delta time 0. So if you right click and find references, you'll find them in the start harvesting function. So there they are. All we're going to do is we're going to delete them, or delete the function, the variable itself, and you'll notice they'll vanish from here. It's warning us they're in use. Yes, we wanted to delete them. There they go. Now right click, type in delta time, and we want to get delta time this time. Say that 5 times fast. Plug that into there, Control W it down here, and plug it into there. All right, that takes care of our units. For the ground units at least. We now have the vehicle. So the vehicle, which will be affected by the engineer, is going to have a health bar of its own. So we're going to literally replicate what we've just done. Let's call it the harvester. We're not going to come back to this. So let's go to our ground vehicle. Let's create our 4 variables again, which will be current health. Again, as a float. We're going to use different numbers, by the way, in these variables. Max health. We're going to flop around or switch around the current armor and current health that we used. Current armor and max armor. So our current health, once we compile, will be 25 instead of 75. Our max health will be 100, staying the same. Our current armor will be 75 on this one instead of 25. And our max health, again, max armor will be 100. Again, I'm going to put these in a category called stats. And I'm just going to move everything into there, just like we did before. And like before, we're going to go to our viewport, Control S save, just so everything is saved. And we are going to add in our widget and make sure the name is the same, so it'll save us some time. Oh, and it's going to be a child of the mesh, so type in widget. After selecting the mesh, there we go. It's unit status bar. And again, make sure to set the widget class, w display status. And I'm going to set this at 240. There we go. Go back to your unit master for a second. Open up your update and make sure this is in your copy buffer still. We're just going to copy it. Go back to your ground vehicle master. Go to your event graph. And in here, we are going to create those functions. So we're going to have update health bar. Control paste. Notice none of the variables are missing because we have the same names for everything. Plug that into there. Line that up nicely. And do our return node. Go back to your unit master. Copy out what you have for the armor. Go back to your ground vehicle master. Update armor. Update unit armor bar. Let's rename this one as well. Yes, I could hit F2. I'm just really paranoid because OBS hotkeys have been messing up on me. And thus I am not copying and pasting. Thus I'm not hitting F2 because for some reason, even though I've disabled that hotkey, it is causing issues for me. All right, there we go. Do return on this side. And finally, of course, we're going to do the orientate towards camera. So again, let's go to our unit master. Open it up. Get our orientate to camera. And we're going to run into a little bit of issue here because I think the variable names are slightly different, which is fine. I'll show you how to deal with that. I've already shown you. Bit of a refresher, though. And then again, we're going to do a new event, which will be orient to camera. Paste it into here. Oh no, the variable name is the same, controller ref. For some reason I thought it was player controller. I might be thinking of the building master where the name is different. Plug it into there, and then again, a return node. Fortunately, there are no children. We don't have to worry about any issues there, but we do need to actually call these events. Let's get rid of the get passengers. Go to the event graph, and on the event graph, what we're going to do is we are going to add this in as then2, and we're going to move the HUD down to then3. So add pin, move this down to then3, put a reroute in that we'll deal with in a second, and move this down here. Move that there as well. And then we'll grab your update unit health, plug it into the then2, and then the unit armor there. And again, we don't have an event tick. So select everything under the then begin play. I personally just like having event ticks right under the begin play. It kind of mirrors the C++ code. Right click, event tick, add it in. And on our event tick, we don't need delta time right now at least. We're going to do the orientate towards camera, or orient towards camera. Set that. Now let's test it out. Open your map. B to spawn in a vehicle. Notice that the status bars are kind of reverse of each other because we reverse the stats, and it's displaying. The building is going to be slightly different. Most of the steps are going to be the same, except for I'm going to say the buildings don't have armor. They just have health. So first, before we even get to the building, just Control S, save everything again. Let's go to our building, and we're going to add in our bar to the building. And we're going to do it in a few different places, and we're going to have to handle it a little bit different. We're going to have to do it in a few different places, and we're going to have to handle it a little bit differently than we've handled other things. Now, the reason why we have to handle it differently, we're not even going to start with the variables. We're going to start in the viewport this time. We don't have a mesh. Our building mesh is empty. So we don't know where we want to place it. So that can lead to some issues. So what we're going to do is we are going to still add in our status bar. It's going to be a child of the billboard. So let's do widget. And this will still be, well, it's not going to be unit. It's going to be building status bar. Set the widget class just like before. Done this 3 times already now, or 2 times already. You think I remember the name of it. And we're not going to change any of its stats here. It's going to remain exactly as it is. It's going to float in the middle of nowhere, or in the middle of the billboard. What we're going to do is we're going to create variables that will control where, or functions that control where this is located. So let's go to our event graph now. And we're going to create 2 new variables. And that will be a current health. And this will be a float. And then we'll do max health. And we'll set these variables after compiling to be 50. Just so again we have a different size bar to make sure that it's working correctly. And 100. Compile, save. And now I just want to take a quick detour into something else. I ran into an issue, and I mentioned sometime earlier on in the series this really should have just been one set of bool variables. If you want to see a slight issue, just hit play. Actually, go to your main map, select your building here, hit is built, hit play. Now, usually you're not going to have unbuilt buildings on the start of your map, but this is just a bit of a nuisance, an annoyance to me at least. It's still coming across as if it's built. Actually, that shouldn't be showing up. So, let's just quickly spawn in a training post. Alright, we have 2 issues we need to fix. Glad we opened the building info HUD. But we're also going to need to make some other changes. The first thing we need to do is, if we hit play again, just to show you what the first issue is, it says training post building health. It doesn't see it as under construction. So to resolve this, what we are going to do is we are going to set this as default under construction, and then we are going to make it exposed, and so we can edit it later on. Hit play now. Open up this building, and it's under construction. That shouldn't be showing up. We'll take care of that as well in this video. And now to set it back to being built and not having any of that unwanted jazz, select your training post. Keep getting landscape. I need to make the landscape unselectable. Turn is under construction to false. Set is built to true. Hit play. And there we go. Everything's showing up nicely. All right, so let's go back here and, let's go back to our building master and take care of the display status. Then we'll take care of the HUD, since that's something else we have to do other things for anyway. And the first thing we are going to do is we aren't going to set the armor or health. We are going to set the status bar height. So create a new variable, and this will be new function. This will be set status bar height. Get your building mesh, drag it onto here, and then get the local bounds. So get local bounds. We don't care about the min, we care about the max, and we only care about one of them. So split the structure. We only care about the Z. So off the Z, we're going to do float plus float. We are going to do it to 100, so it's going to be 100 units above the top of the building. And then we're going to drag off of here and make vector. Unlike other make vectors, we're not going to worry about the X or Y at all. We're just going to plug that into the Z. And the reason why we're doing that is the local, the relative, the local X and Y aren't going to be anything. They are really going to be 0, 0. If we plug these in, the top of the building will be, say, if it's the silo, maybe 200 units above the bottom. So that'll be 200. It's going to put it in a weird spot. We don't want that. We want it 0, 0, center of the building. We are then going to grab the building status bar, and we are going to set relative location. Plug that into your set bar height there. Line everything up. And this is the new location. And of course, at the end, we have a return node. There we go. Compile, save. Now this bar still isn't going to show up yet, but let's get everything else in order first. We'll do our update building health. And we'll just go to our unit master, go to our unit health. And I know that some of this isn't going to work because we have different names for some of the stuff. Oh, sorry, I'm thinking of the orientate to camera. This should actually work. Go back to your building master, paste in the unit health. It isn't unit status bar anymore, though. That is different. It is building status bar instead. So grab your building status bar and bring it into here. Plug that in. delete the unit status bar, and everything is the same, current health, max health, and then we need our return node, of course. Now, as I said, buildings aren't going to have armor, but we already have an armor bar there. So what we're going to do is we're going to set that to hidden in game. So just copy these first 3 nodes here, Control C, and then we're going to do set armor bar hidden. Paste it in. Get the armor bar. And then off the armor bar, set visibility and set it to hidden. Plug that into there. And then we're going to have a return node. Right. Now, we don't want this bar showing up if a building is not constructed. We only want it visible if it is a fully built building. So we're going to create 2 new functions. The first one will be set status bar visible. So let's do that. Set status bar visible. And we don't need a cast, we just need to get the status bar. And we need 2 nodes coming off of this. So we're going to do set hidden in game. And we're going to propagate to children. And we're not going to select new hidden. We want this false. Set that there, put a reroute in, drag down, not drag the reroute, drag off the reroute, do set visibility, new visibility true, propagate to children, true, plug that into the set hidden, and put a couple of reroutes in just so it's easier to read. And as always, our return node. I know I've skipped orientate towards the camera. We'll take care of that in a moment. Highlight all of this, copy it, create a new function. Actually, we could have just duplicated the previous function. Delete the new function, right click, duplicate, and this will be set status bar hidden. Select new hidden on this one, deselect new visibility. There we go. Now this will set it to hidden when we call this function. And finally, we need to do the orientate towards camera. So if we go into here, go into our unit master, go into orientate towards camera, select everything, including the player controller reference, even though that won't work. Right, Control C it, and then we'll do orientate to camera. Paste that in. Notice that we have 2 variables that don't seem to exist, which is the status bar, the unit status bar. Again, we already covered why that is. We have a different name, and our player controller. Same reason, it has a different name. There we go. So let's just replace the unit status bar with the building status bar. Delete that. And delete the controller reference here. Our reference name is player controller reference. Get that. Plug that in. And it will work fine when we call this. Now we're going to place these in different locations. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our construct script. Now I just want to make a quick note about something here before I show you anything. If you have preset meshes you want to use or materials, get rid of this node. This is just because I didn't have a material set for it. I wanted something different. If you want to do something that's random, you can also do that here. You'll have other functions set up going into it. But this is not necessary if you have a default mesh you want to use. So if I delete this, we get a gray mesh that is the sizing mesh. But since I don't have a mesh, I want to make a clear difference between the preview and the built. I set this up. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to, on the is built true line, set our status bar visible. And we are going to set the height of the bar. So set status bar height. We are going to set the status bar invisible or hidden on the not built. So is built false? Nope. Set this to hidden. We still want to set the height. And the reason we want to set the height here is when the building is built, we just want the bar to appear. We already want to know where the bar is going to be though. So we're setting it to hidden, and we're still setting the bar to be a certain height. Compile, go to your event graph, and in your event graph, we are going to add in the bar, again, like we did in the previous one, on the then 2. So we're going to move what's currently there to our then 3. So add a pin in. Move this down here. In fact, actually, we're going to need to move these 3 functions a little bit further down. There we go. Give some room to play with. Move this set of functions down here. And we're just going to tighten this up a tiny bit so we have a little bit more room to play with. Off the then 2, we want to do a branch. And we want to check, is this building built? If it is, then we want to display the unit health and hide the armor bar. So we do the update building health, and we do the set armor bar hidden. I guess you could do the set armor bar hidden on the construct, but I just like having them together. Next, we need to consider what we're going to do when the building finishes constructing. So let's just expand this out a bit because we need a little bit more room. When the building is done constructing, we need to set this bar to visible. We also, at this point, need to update the unit health. So after the set material, we're going to put all the status bar stuff there. Just going to move this down here. So we're going to set it now to visible. We are going to update the unit health. Now, if we do this, the armor bar is going to show up because, remember, we've only hidden the armor bar on event begin play if the building is already built. So we are just going to move this down a little bit. We need more room. Expand that out. We are going to hide the armor bar. So set armor bar hidden. There we go. And move that into there. Now we can't just tack on the orientate towards camera on this line. This only is firing once when the building is done constructing. So if the construction status, if it needs to construct and we finish constructing, it will go off. So instead of that, what we're going to do is we're going to move this set of functions down slightly. And we're going to move this upwards slightly. Also, we're going to select the entire line here just to move this upwards. We're going to move all of this construction stuff up here. Put a reroute in just so it's a little bit neater. Actually, I'm not a fan of that reroute. Get rid of the reroute. Off the false. So if it is not being constructed anymore, if it doesn't need construction, if it's built, in other words, we are going to orientate towards camera. All right. This will be, again, in stats. I was just checking what our options were. Move that into there. Oh, sorry about that. Move that into stats. Compile, save. Now let's make sure this works. Hit play. There's a status bar. Only one bar visible. We can see it. Let's spawn in a bunch of sorry, that's a vehicle. Let's spawn in a bunch of units. Let's spawn in a silo. Notice there's no status bar. Let's now construct this silo. Speed the clock up. And there we go. The bar is now visible and has information. Now there's a small problem. This status bar was dummy coded earlier. It doesn't match reality. So we need to update that as well. And to do so, the reason why we have our building info HUD open is to fix that problem. So go into your building info HUD. And in your building info HUD, we want to go to our go to your graph first. We want to go to our set progress bar. We'll also need to do the progress bar label. Oh, not label, sorry, close that out. Progress bar text as well. Let's start here. All we're going to do here is change out the variable here to something similar to this. Grab your building ref, Grab the reroute as well just to save time. Control W it down there. Current health. Max health. Float divided by float. And plug that into there. Go to Control S save. Go to your progress bar text. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to actually copy all of this. Control W it down here. Move it over. Plug that into there. And delete these two. And again, we're going to do the current health. Plug that into there. And max health. Plug that into there. Compile. Save. Hit play. All we need to do now is open one of these buildings. So we're getting a bit of an error. It's saying 0%. Well, that shouldn't happen. That's saying 50%. What's happening is, go back to your main window, select the building, set the is under construction to false, save, play, 50%. All right, so that takes us through everything we need to do for this lesson. I remember that there was that error with this building. So what we're going to do is we're going to check why that information is displaying. We should not see the that particular window. We should not see the recruitment box. So let's go back to our building info HUD. Let's go to our graph. Let's select our recruitment box and make sure we actually set visibility. So under behavior, we have not set our visibility yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new binding, and that will be set. Oh, sorry, I have to do that here. Right click, set recruitment visibility. And we're going to need a few things in here actually. I don't know how I skipped this, and yet it's in my prep file. So we need to break this. We need to drag back off this return value and promote to local variable, and this will be visibility local. We then need to drag off of here and do a branch. And on the true, we are going to set visible. On the false, we are going to set hidden. Both of these will go into the same return node. Put a reroute in just to make life a bit easier. Plug into that reroute node there. And yeah, that looks nice enough. What we need to worry about is this conditional statement. So not only does the building need to be constructed, it needs to be the correct building. Logic. Off the condition, put an and in. And the first thing we're going to do is get our building reference. And we're going to check is built. So is the building built? And put this reroute into there. Is this of the right sort of building? So building name. Get building name. And off of that, what we want to do is we're going to want to drag this out because we need a bit of room actually. We want to do, is the building name equal to training post? Equal enum. We got our list of our enums. There's our training post. Plug that into there. Compile, play, open this up. Nothing shows up there. Good. That shows up there. Let's spawn in a new training post. And it doesn't show up. Awesome. So that covers everything we need to do for setting up our special units. The next video, I'm not sure if it's actually going to be 1 or 2 videos to set this up. We will set up our engineering unit. Our engineering unit will, when it enters will be the only units that can construct unconstructed buildings, and the only units that can enter unconstructed buildings. When they enter damaged buildings, reason why we set the health like that, outside of just making sure the status bars work correctly, they'll repair the buildings. When they enter damaged vehicles, they will repair the vehicles. We'll also make it so the vehicles can't move while they're being repaired. And we'll talk about the issues that might come up from that as well. So that said, if you've liked this video or this series, make sure to drop a like down below. In addition, make sure to hit that subscribe and notify icon so you know when the next tutorial is out. And if you're interested, join the Discord community. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what's going on. Ask me any questions you want there. Or let me know down in the comments below. As always, I hope to see you in the next tutorial, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.